Coloradans at the DNC are counting on security that has been questioned lately since the Secret Service's failure to protect Donald Trump.
A lot of Americans don't have confidence right now that, our elected officials and our candidates are secure.
We'll talk with the Coloradan leading the congressional investigation. We continue our series, The Stakes for Colorado, looking at how the presidential candidates' positions would impact our state. Tonight, what a Harris administration would mean for our air, land, and water, including her flip-flop on fracking. Some context around the reports of violence we've seen out of downtown Denver, and the power of a haircut and the human kindness that comes with it. Tonight on Next, live from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. At this very moment, Colorado just gave its 86 delegates to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. The announcement made as we go through the roll call of states here at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Good evening. The hundreds of Coloradans who have come here to Chicago for this convention are protected by the rings of security that ripple out from the Secret Service personal protective details of the presidents, current and former, who will parade through this event this week. President Joe Biden yesterday, former President Barack Obama tonight, former President Bill Clinton tomorrow night. The work of the Secret Service is under intense scrutiny right now, following the failed assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump in July. Here in Chicago, it is the Chicago Police Department that is doing the work of protecting most of the city and the 50,000 people here for the DNC. There's a hardened perimeter around the United Center, and inside that, the Secret Service is in charge, checking every person and vehicle that enters that secured ring. The Secret Service, of course, is currently under investigation by Congress for the failures around the attempted assassination of Trump in Pennsylvania. The top Democrat on that task force is from Colorado. We'll speak with him in just a moment. So we are here in Chicago covering the DNC because Democrats are attempting to do something unprecedented, which is to swap out one nominee or presumptive nominee for another in the middle of a campaign, and rolling out a number of her policy positions after she accepts her party's nomination. As with our daily coverage of the RNC, each day this week, we will continue our series looking in depth at how the presidential candidates' policies would directly impact Colorado. This is Decision 2024, The Stakes for Colorado, and tonight, our Marshall Zellinger looks at the impact a Kamala Harris presidency could have on Colorado's air, land, and water.
Colorado lawmakers have put restrictions in place to make fracking more difficult in the state. As a presidential candidate, Kamala Harris appears to have changed her stance on fracking. Her campaign has said she would not ban fracking on federal lands, which includes parts of Colorado. But that's not what she said herself in a 2019 CNN town hall when she first ran for president.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. We have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities.
Harris's campaign now says she does not want to ban fracking, which would require help from Congress anyway.
A president doesn't have the power to ban fracking anyway. So saying you're going to ban fracking was an empty promise back in 2019.
Kathleen Skama is the president of Western Energy Alliance, which for 50 years has represented oil and gas producers in the Rocky Mountains. With Harris previously saying she would ban fracking, Skama sees a larger issue.
It means that they are hostile to oil and natural gas producers, and that they're going to do everything to overregulate us and try to put us out of business as much as they can.
She's able to open the narrative finally to what does environmental justice look like for a climate just society.
Renee M. Chacon is a Commerce City Councilwoman living close to the state's largest polluter, Suncor. She's seeking environmental justice, something Harris has pursued throughout her career as a California District Attorney, Attorney General, and U.S. Senator. So what is environmental justice to Chacon?
Our ability to be able to have our civil rights met, to be able to breathe clean air, drink clean water, live in a clean space, and educate our children with true sovereignty for Indigenous communities that still live in the urban corridor we still call Denver.
This administration has really been prioritizing environmental justice and addressing climate change.
Casey Becker is the EPA Regional Administrator for Region 8, which covers these Rocky Mountain states. She explained how the Biden-Harris administration is putting environmental justice into action in disadvantaged communities.
When we've been implementing things like the Clean School Bus Program or lead service line replacement, we are prioritizing the communities that need it most.
But that is the Biden-Harris administration, not the Harris administration.
She hasn't done any interviews. She hasn't done any press conferences. So I'm not 100% sure that anybody really knows what her policy statements are.
Republican Weld County Commissioner Mike Freeman is not sure what to be worried about yet. But we do know Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the Inflation Reduction Act that put a focus on climate change and electrification, resulting in $140 million in home energy rebates for Coloradans.
Whether we want to get away from fossil fuel at some point, whether that's a good thing or not, time will tell. But I think you can get in too big of a hurry to get there.
I think she's going to have to answer some specific questions about her energy policy and other policies to satisfy the voters so they know that what choice they're making.
This would be a heck of a lot easier if the Kamala Harris for President website had something that most campaign websites have. Usually an issues tab up here, or at the very bottom, something about issues or about us or what we stand for, something that tells us some of the meat that she will bring as possible president, Kyle, something that tells us what people would be voting on besides the person. We need to know the policy as well.
Yeah, we can assume it's just going to be a follow-through of the Biden-Harris administration policies, but we know it's not going to be that in every case, which is why we and other journalists will continue to keep asking questions, and this series will continue. Marshall, thank you. You can see our entire Decision 2024, the Stakes for Colorado series, right now on 9news.com in the next section, and there you'll find the 5 in-depth reports we did on Donald Trump's policies during the Republican National Convention. So the party's national conventions are, among other things, tremendous security challenges. Without getting into the details, the Secret Service presence within the United Center here in Chicago is intense and it is layered. The attempted assassination of Donald Trump in July has put more scrutiny on that agency than any time in American history since 1981, with the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. Democratic Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado is the lead Democrat on the Congressional task force investigating where the Secret Service failed. Today, in our next conversation with Crow, I asked him whether Republicans should feel comfortable with a Trump impeachment manager investigating Trump's attempted assassination.
Do you see why some Republicans might be uneasy with you in this new role, given that last role?
Well, folks shouldn't be uneasy. They shouldn't be uneasy at all. So this effort has 2 primary goals. One is we have to submit a report to Congress. That's what the legislation says, right? By December 13th, we've got to submit a report that's a full accounting of what happened, what went wrong, and our recommendations for changes and accountability. And we're going to do that. But the second goal is also really important. And that is we have to show America that we can disagree, that we can have fierce debates, because we're going to go through an election cycle at the same time as we're doing this investigation. And we're going to show that we can do both.
Do you think that you and your fellow Democrats and Republicans on this task force are going to be able to keep it from devolving into conspiracy theories and so forth? Are you going to be able to keep that out of the room?
I do think we will. First of all, Mike Kelly, the chairman of the task force, is a friend of mine. He falls in that category of people that I can work with. He's very conservative, right? And he's even a supporter of Donald Trump. But I get along with him. He gets along with me. We have dedicated ourselves to making this work and being bipartisan.
Do you have a mechanism if you find troubling information that should not wait until the end of this presidential campaign for change to happen, for you to get that to the right people?
I'm glad you asked that, because we actually are in discussions. We're trying to figure out what that mechanism looks like, because our report isn't due until December 13th. The election's on November 5th. There were very clear security lapses, and a lot of Americans don't have confidence right now that our elected officials and our candidates are secure. So we believe that it's important that we look at a way to put out interim findings, right? That we do something sooner rather than later. But we want it to be accurate, right? Because one of the worst things we could do is put out inaccurate information and lead to these conspiracy theories or a lack of confidence in the process. So it has to be accurate. But we do feel like there is a need to issue some type of recommendations, some type of preliminary findings to say these things need to be fixed now.
When our next conversation with Representative Jason Crow continues, I'll ask him about some of the questions that Republicans have been raising about the military service of vice presidential nominee Tim Walz. Right now, the delegation from Illinois, the host of this DNC, is casting their votes for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Closer to home in Colorado, 4 shootings in less than 3 weeks in the area around Lodo and the 16th Street Mall have raised very fair questions about safety downtown. Tonight, our Mark Salinger takes a look at the broader picture of whether crime really is increasing in that area.
There's no question there's been a lot of police tape, flashing lights, and fear in parts of downtown Denver this month.
I was terrified and I ran.
3 people shot near the 16th Street Mall in Union Station last week.
Let me see your hands.
2 shootings right near each other on 19th Street at the beginning of the month. One of those involved police. And another shooting this weekend on 17th. It feels like a lot.
Yeah, that's been the hard part, dealing with that type of situations here downtown.
In total, Denver police say they've responded to more than 30 shootings so far this year in the entire downtown area. At least 4 have been fatal. Is that a lot? Less than most years? We asked DPD for the numbers. Through August 20th of this year, there have been 32 shootings in Denver Police District 6, which covers all of downtown, Capitol Hill, and Cheeseman Park. In the same time frame last year, there were 66 shootings in the same area. In 2022, there were 52, and in 2021, there were 46. The number of shootings downtown is down more than 50% this year, compared to the same time last year. Those numbers, according to Denver police.
It is hard for our city, no matter where these incidents occur, to really ensure that people feel safe.
The city is working to improve the 16th Street Mall to get people to come back after the pandemic. Police have also increased patrols in Lodo and tried to get people to move out of the area quickly when the bars close on weekends.
We're hoping that with the disbursement of the crowds, the disbursement of the patrons, the safety will increase.
He's got a gunshot wound to the arm.
While the numbers show the shootings are down, even one still feels like one too many.
The number of shootings, though, only tell part of the story. Violent gun crimes, including assault, sex offenses, and robbery, are also down around downtown, though at a lesser rate. Year over year, those violent gun crimes are down 25% downtown. Kyle, they're at their lowest numbers in 4 years.
Certainly, Mark, one violent crime is too many, but it's good to know that broader picture as well. Thank you.
I have no qualms whatsoever about what Tim Walz has said about his service.
Republicans are accusing Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz of stolen valor for the way he's talked about his military service. Congressman, combat vet Jason Crow says the way the military works can explain some of that, and proof that a fresh fade can be the key to a fresh start. Next. Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz speaks here at the DNC in Chicago tomorrow night. He'll no doubt spend some time talking about his decades of service in the National Guard. Republicans have criticized Walz for claiming a rank that he was not able to retire at, and for saying that he carried weapons in war when in fact he deployed but did not see combat. I talked about that today in our next conversation with Democratic Representative Jason Crow of Colorado, a former Army Ranger.
Both you and Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz are veterans. You're a combat vet. He is not. He's blurred that line in some of his public statements. Do you take issue with that?
No, I don't think he's blurred that line. I've seen those statements. Tim Walz served this country honorably for 24 years, right, which is almost 3 times as long as I was in the National Guard in active duty. So I have no qualms whatsoever about what Tim Walz has said about his service. He actually extended his service 4 years beyond the time at which he could retire. He deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom when he was asked to deploy. And I also add that, we've been at war for 20 years, right? I did 3 combat deployments in a period of about 3 years. So anybody leaving the service between 2001 to 2021 in any unit, that unit was subject to a recall.
Yeah, let me ask you about this. So clearly he put in and took his retirement before his unit got the orders to deploy. But some of the men that he served with said that he should have known that they were going, and they felt like he abandoned him. You've served. How do you sort that out? Like, what do you make of that when you hear that kind of thing?
You know, military, I know I don't have to sort it out because I understand how military units work. They're like families, right? And like families, they disagree and not everybody gets along, right? So there are people with, personal grievances that they may not like somebody, and unfortunately they'll say, things about that person. But, the timeline is very clear. His service is very clear. And what's really exciting is we are sitting here with a presidential ticket for the first time in American history, and we have the highest ranking enlisted person ever to serve on a presidential ticket in American history.
You can see my full next conversation with Representative Crow on the next YouTube channel or on 9news.com. There we talk about whether Crow is still the centrist that he ran for Congress as 5 years ago, and how the Harris-Walz ticket should balance progressive priorities with appealing to centrist voters.
Everybody needs help, That's why I do it, because everybody needs help, man.
And that help is a life-changing piece of kindness. That's next. Kindness is a gift, the kind of gift that builds self-confidence. And that is how kindness changes lives. Our Byron Reed introduces us to a group downtown offering the kindest cut.
A simple haircut can go a long way in making a person feel special.
I was really excited. I put everything aside for this.
It's a feeling that Ashley O'Sullivan is grateful for.
I can't get down to the haircut place for transportation reasons, mobility reasons.
Well, hello, Mr. Damien.
O'Sullivan lives at the Off-Broadway Lofts in downtown Denver, where they're giving free haircuts to people in need.
When they down, they always need somebody to help pick them up.
Taza Gillespie, who goes by T, is donating his time and talents to help others when times are tough.
Build their confidence, build their self-esteem, make them feel good. If it was me, I would want somebody to help me, man. That's why I feel like it's important, man,
It's called the Flashback Food and Cuts event for the community.
Kai Griffin is a case manager for the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, who provides outreach services like the free haircuts for people experiencing homelessness.
They could be having a bad day, be stressed out about something, and my job is to make sure that I'm providing the resources and assistance in the time of need so that they could feel a sense of someone does care and someone is looking out for their best interest.
It's that feeling of caring that brightens up Ashley's day.
It uplifts me.
From a simple haircut that means so much more.
I went through a phase in my life where I didn't think anyone cared, So to meet people that actually do care is really nice.
For next,
don't give up, There are nice people out there.
I'm Byron Reed.
Back with your feedback from Chicago next. Eric with feedback on Kamala Harris's change in position on fracking. He says, have you never changed your mind over the course of 5 years? Eric, I admire when people change their minds based on new information. When Harris starts answering some questions from journalists, then we can decide, did she learn and grow, or will folks perceive that it was done out of political expedience? We'll see you next time.